Morning again. But this one feels different. The sun is climbing slow and heavy, painting the world in molten gold. You wake not to drums or rain this time, but to bells ringing somewhere upriver, a rhythmic, almost melodic clang that echoes through the air. Your farmer friend grins knowingly. "You're coming with me to town today," he says. "Town," you echo, already wary. "As in actual crowds," he laughs. "As in everything Egypt. Markets, temples, priests, maybe a fight over bread. You'll love it." You do not trust that tone, but curiosity wins. After days of mud and mosquitoes, the ancient civilization. Even ancient civilization sounds like luxury. The road is busy, a mix of carts, donkeys, and people carrying baskets balanced perfectly on their heads. The smell of smoke, fish perfume, and humanity all blend into a dizzying aroma cocktail. By the time you reach the city gates, you already feel like you've stepped into another universe. Houses of sun, baked mud brick rise on either side, their flat roofs lined with drying herbs and pottery. The streets twist and narrow, shaded by reed mats strung between buildings. Children dart through alleys chasing each other with shrieks of laughter. The whole place hums with life. "Welcome to Wayset," your friend says proudly. "What future generations will call Thebes." You glance around, wide-eyed. Thebes, the capital of gods, kings, and at least 3 different ways to get pickpocketed. You try to look confident, which mostly means gripping your pouch tighter. You follow your friend toward the sound of drums and flutes. The marketplace opens before you like a living painting. Rows of stalls stacked high with bread, baskets, linen, copper tools, and pottery painted with divine faces. The air smells of roasted fish, honey cakes, and sweat. A scribe sits beneath a palm awning, offering to write letters for those who can't. "Price is fair today," your friend asks a vendor. The man snorts. "Fair for who?" They haggle cheerfully in rapid Egyptian while you examine the wares. Tiny amulets shaped like scarabs, jars of scented oil, and one basket filled with dried lizards. Protection charms. The vendor explains when he catches your look. Against bad dreams. You consider buying one. Ancient Egypt seems determined to test your luck nightly. You wander further, absorbing details. Women grinding grain at stone mills, men sharpening blades, children feeding scraps to sacred cats. Every corner holds a story. You spot a muralist painting a fresh wall scene, vibrant ochre and blue lines depicting a procession of priests. For the temple, he tells you. Tomorrow's ceremony for Amun. Your friend overhears. "Perfect! You'll see real magic then." "Define real." You murmur. "Priests calling the gods. What's more real than that?" He's not wrong. Faith here isn't abstract. It's woven into every heartbeat of the city. You follow the crowds toward the great temple, its pylons towering over the rooftops like mountains of carved sunlight. The facade is covered in hieroglyphs, so deep you can fit your fingers inside them. At the gate, incense curls upward in lazy spirals, thick with myrrh and something sharper. Inside, it's cooler, darker. Columns rise like forest trunks, their capitals blooming with painted lotus petals. Every sound, the shuffle of feet, the faint chanting, the drip of water from stone troughs, feels amplified by the cavernous space. You can't help whispering. This is incredible. A passing priest turns his head slightly amused. "It's home," he says simply. His skin gleams with oil, his linen perfectly white, his head shaved smooth. The smell of lotus perfume follows him like a signature. Historians still argue whether Egyptian priests were true mystics or just skilled administrators in fancy outfits. Standing here, watching one sprinkle natron on an altar while another waves burning resin before a golden statue, you suspect it's both. The ritual is part theater, part devotion. You stand at the back, respectful but fascinated. The statue of Amun sits at the center, eyes inlaid with obsidian, mouth faintly smiling. When the high priest begins to chant, the sound reverberates through your ribs. The words are ancient, older than the walls. A boy servant shakes a sistrum. Its metal jingles like raindrops. The crowd murmurs half prayer, half breath. And then, something happens. The air shifts. It's subtle, like static before lightning, but everyone feels it. Goosebumps ripple across your arms. The priest raises his hands, and for a heartbeat, the world goes utterly still. Even the flies stop buzzing. Then the chant ends, the moment breaks, and sound returns in a rush. Drums, whispers, the creak of sandals on stone. The people begin to bow and file out, murmuring blessings. You let out the breath you didn't realize you were holding. Was that? You start. Your friend grins. The god said yes. To what? To everything. Outside. Sunlight feels blinding after the temple's twilight calm. The air smells of heat and perfume again, and your ears are still ringing faintly. So that was divine communication. You ask as you walk. He nods. You felt it, didn't you? You can't deny that you did. Rationally, you know it was chanting, incense, acoustics. But something in your chest still hums like a struck chord. On the way back through the market, you pass a small commotion. A fortune teller sits beneath a canopy of woven reeds, reading fate in handfuls of sand. Come, she croons when she spots you. Traveller, your shadow walks beside strange stars. Your friend nudges you. Go on. She's good. You hesitate, then sit cross-legged in front of her. The woman's eyes are lined in dark kohl. Her fingers glitter with copper rings. She pours fine sand into your palm. Ask. You consider joking, but her gaze is too sharp. Will? I've survived Egypt. She chuckles low. For now. The sand trickles through her fingers as she murmurs something soft. You walk between worlds, she says finally. But beware the dead. They listen when you speak their names. A chill runs up your spine. That's comforting. She smiles faintly. Comfort is for the living. You hand her a few copper pieces and stand, brushing sand from your hands. Your friend looks impressed. She's never that poetic for me. Maybe she's trying to scare me back to my century. You say under your breath. Evening settles over the city like warm honey. The marketplace slows, torches flicker to life. You and your friend find a tavern by the river, where laughter pours out like music. The walls are painted with dancers, and the smell of grilled fish and beer fills the air. Inside, men and women sit shoulder to shoulder singing, clapping, sharing food. A musician plucks a lute, while another keeps time on a small drum. You join in awkwardly, tapping along. Someone pours you a drink, stronger than the usual weak beer. Date wine, the man says proudly. You sip and cough. Sweet. And dangerous. He laughs. Like our women. Your friend rolls his eyes. Ignore him. You relax slowly, letting the rhythm of the place seep in. Maybe it's the drink, maybe it's the music, but the night feels easy, warm, alive. You catch fragments of gossip about temple taxes, a missing goat, and a scribe who fainted during the heat. Historians still argue whether these taverns were respectable meeting spots or dens of sin. From what you see, they're both, depending on who's asking. As the night deepens, you step outside for air. The river glows under moonlight, gentle ripples catching bits of starlight. You can still hear laughter behind you, but out here, it's quieter. The breeze carries hints of incense and fried onions. You think about the temple, the chanting, the fortune teller's words. Egypt feels less like a place and more like a presence, alive, listening, eternal. You whisper softly, I get it. I really do. Somewhere downriver, a crocodile splashes, breaking the calm. You smile faintly. Even the wildlife seems to answer back. Tomorrow will bring more work, more dust. Maybe more near-death experiences. But for now, standing under the silver Egyptian moon, you almost believe you belong here. You wake to the smell of smoke and spice, that familiar mix of something cooking and something possibly burning. For a moment, you think you're still dreaming, until you hear the unmistakable sound of chanting outside. Deep, rhythmic, insistent. You stumble to the doorway, rubbing your eyes. The village is alive with movement. Women carry jars of oil, men haul baskets of grain. Children dart around with flowers clutched in their hands. A low hum fills the air, equal parts excitement and reverence. Your friend grins when he spots you. Good timing, he says. Festival day. You blink. Festival for what? He raises an eyebrow. For who, you mean? Today we honor Bastet. You try to recall. Bastet, the cat goddess. Protector of homes, goddess of joy, music, fertility, and apparently parties. You're going to like this, your friend says with a wink. Even the priests dance. That's how you find yourself swept into the heart of an ancient street festival before breakfast. Drums pulse through the air, their beats contagious. Flutes wail, sistrums rattle. The smell of roasting meat mingles with incense and river breeze. Every color seems brighter. The gold paint on statues, the red ribbons in people's hair, even the sand underfoot glitters like powdered sunlight. You pass rows of stalls selling garlands of lotus and papyrus, tiny cat amulets, and honey cakes shaped like feline faces. Cats, actual cats, wander freely between legs, sleek and confident, as if they know the whole celebration is for them. Which, in fairness, it is. One cat hops onto your shoulder uninvited, purring like royalty.
Ah, your friend laughs. Bastet chooses you.
Great, you mutter, steadying the feline. No pressure. You join the procession heading toward the temple. Musicians lead the way, followed by dancers with gold bangles flashing at their wrists and ankles. Behind them, priests carry a statue of Bastet herself. Lioness head, sleek body, eyes painted so vividly they seem alive. The crowd chants her name in unison, voices rising like heat waves. Does every god get this kind of turnout? You ask. Only the fun ones, your friend replies. The temple of Bastet looms ahead, white stone glowing in the sun, columns adorned with carvings of cats, flowers, and protective eyes. Incense pours from wide bronze braziers, filling the air with a sweet, heady perfume. Inside, light filters through high windows, painting golden stripes across the floor. You watch as the priests begin the ceremony. They move with a precision that feels almost musical. Bowing, pouring oil, lighting wicks. Women play sistrums in rhythmic patterns, while others sing hymns in voices that echo through the vast space. Historians still argue whether these festivals were more religious or recreational. Half sacred devotion, half city, wide block party. From what you see, the answer is both. Devotion here isn't stiff or solemn. It's joyful, embodied, loud. Someone presses a cup of wine into your hand. Date, sweet, and dangerously strong. Another woman offers a garland of blue lotus, which you place awkwardly around your neck. You're not sure if you look festive or like you lost a bet. The music grows wilder, the rhythm impossible to resist. Dancers spin laughing, their gold jewelry flashing in arcs of sunlight. You feel yourself swaying to the beat despite every awkward modern bone in your body. Your friend shouts over the music, "Bastet loves laughter!" If you don't laugh, she gets bored. You oblige, laughing so hard your stomach hurts. Maybe it's the heat, maybe the wine, maybe the sheer absurdity of doing the electric slide's ancient cousin in front of a temple. But you're having fun. Genuine, unguarded fun. Then you notice something odd. In one corner of the courtyard, a priest is performing a quieter ritual, smaller, but intense. He kneels before a black cat perched on a pedestal, murmuring incantations. The cat blinks slowly, regal, disinterested, and somehow divine. Is that her? You whisper. An avatar, your friend says softly. Sometimes the goddess comes as herself. You watch, transfixed. The priest offers milk. The cat laps once, then jumps down, weaving through the crowd like smoke. When it passes you, its tail brushes your ankle. Goosebumps rise instantly. Your friend smiles knowingly. Blessing. You're not entirely sure you believe that, but you're also not about to tempt fate by disagreeing. The rest of the day unspools like a dream. Music, laughter, food, more wine. You share bread dipped in honey, roasted duck, figs so ripe they burst when you bite them. Everywhere, people dance, flirt, sing. A group of children parades a cat statue they made from reeds, chanting proudly. You notice one group performing a play of sorts. A mock battle between Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war, and Ra himself. It's part comedy, part cautionary tale. When Sekhmet gets too bloodthirsty, the actors pretend to pour red wine on the ground to trick her into thinking it's blood. The crowd cheers. Your friend leans over. That's why we drink so much today. So Sekhmet sleeps and doesn't destroy the world. You blink. So hangovers are saving humanity.
Exactly.
He laughs. Drink for world peace. You clink cups. Ancient diplomacy at its finest. As the sun sinks, torches and oil lamps replace daylight. The air grows softer, the music slower. Couples dance closer. Laughter mellows into gentle conversation. A priest lights dozens of floating lamps and sets them adrift on the river. The water glows with hundreds of tiny flames drifting downstream like stars let loose. You stand watching, the night breeze cool on your skin, the sound of flutes winding through the air. It's beautiful. You murmur. It's life. Your friend says simply. All gods want joy, even the serious ones. Historians still argue about how much of Egyptian religion was fear versus love of the gods. Here, seeing families share food and laughter beneath the temple lights, you suspect love wins more often than we imagine. As the celebration fades into softer tones, you find a quiet spot by the river. The cat that, blessed, you earlier reappears, curling into your lap like it owns you, which, to be fair, it probably does. You stroke its fur absently, feeling the steady thrum of life all around. Fireflies blink in the reeds. Drums echo faintly from afar. The river glides past, dark and endless. You think about how in this world, joy and worship aren't separate things. They're the same pulse, the same dance. Maybe that's why this civilization lasted so long. They found a way to make life itself sacred. You whisper softly, "Good night, Bastet," before leaning back and letting the sound of music and water lull you toward sleep. The cat purrs louder, its warmth grounding you against the cool desert night. Tomorrow, you'll learn that even the gods have paperwork, and that temples, no matter how divine, still need taxes. But for now, under this starlit sky, you're just another reveller in the oldest party on Earth. A word count, 2037. You wake with the faint taste of wine still on your tongue, and a cat sprawled across your chest like a judgmental paperweight. The temple bells are chiming somewhere in the distance, low and sonorous. When you sit up, the cat gives you a look that can only mean you're late for something important, then promptly wanders off. Your friend appears in the doorway, far too chipper for someone who definitely drank as much as you did last night. "Come on," he says, tossing you a damp linen cloth. "You've danced with gods and cats. Time to meet the people who run them." You blink. "Run the gods," he grins. "The priests and scribes. You'll like them. They write everything down, just like you future folk." That's how you end up walking through the temple district, surrounded by the smell of papyrus, oil, and dust. The celebration's over, and the tone has shifted. Yesterday was joy, today is order. Rows of priests move through shaded courtyards, their white robes gleaming in the sun, their heads shaved smooth. The sound of chanting has been replaced by the quiet scratch of reeds on papyrus. Temples are more than worship, your friend explains. They're banks, schools, archives, farms, hospitals, all in one. You whistle softly. So basically the government. Exactly, he says, nodding. Except this government answers to gods. And to the scribes. You glance around. Everywhere, people are writing lists of offerings, inventories of grain, prayers, contracts. One man sits cross-legged under a palm tree, writing with a reed pen dipped in black ink. The papyrus in front of him looks crisp and smooth, the text beautifully precise. Curious, you crouch nearby. What are you working on? Without looking up, the scribe replies, tax records. A thrilling saga of goats and grain. You smile. Do you ever write anything fun? He sighs dramatically. Sometimes I copy love poems to pay for ink. Historians still argue whether scribes held real power or were simply bureaucrats. Judging by this man's tone, and the number of people waiting for him to sign things, you'd bet on power. Literacy here isn't common, it's sacred. To read and write is to touch the divine order itself. You watch as he seals a document with wet clay, pressing an amulet into it for identification. You really write everything down, don't you? He finally looks up, amused. If it's not written, it never happened. Sounds like Instagram, you mutter. He frowns. What is Instagram? Never mind. You say quickly. It's a long story. As you wander deeper into the temple complex, the air cools. Narrow hallways open into storage rooms filled with jars, scrolls, statues, and offerings. It smells faintly of honey, ink, and age. You catch glimpses of priests conducting daily rituals, washing statues, anointing them with oils, dressing them in fine linen. Your friend leans in. We feed the gods every morning and night. Clean them, perfume them, give them food. They must stay pleased. Do they ever say thanks? You ask, he grins. They send sunshine and floods, sometimes cats. You pass a side chamber where an apprentice carefully mixes pigments. Red ochre, malachite green, soot black. Another grinds minerals into powder with rhythmic precision. For wall paintings, your friend explains. Temples must look alive. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes. The last chamber feels almost secret. A single shaft of light falls across an altar covered in gold leaf. On it sits a small chest, beautifully carved, locked tight. What's inside? You whisper. The god's heart. Your friend says reverently, or at least his statue. Only the high priest may open it. Historians still argue whether these inner sanctums were symbolic or truly believed to house living gods. Standing here, breathing in the thick stillness, you understand why it's hard to draw the line. The air feels charged, alive. The high priest enters then, silent as a shadow. He's older, his robe heavy with embroidery, his face lined but calm. Everyone bows, and you follow suit. He raises a hand in blessing, then studies you for a long moment. You are not of here, he says quietly. Your throat goes dry. No, sir. Just visiting. He nods slowly. Then you must learn the word of Mart before you leave. Mart. He gestures to a nearby wall relief. A feather, perfectly carved, flanked by scales. Order. Balance. Truth. Without Mart, the world falls apart. He steps closer, his gaze sharp but kind. Even kings answer to it, even gods. You nod, sensing the weight of his words. I'll remember that. He smiles faintly. See that you do. When he leaves, your friend exhales. He doesn't talk to everyone. You're lucky? Or in trouble? You mutter. Outside, the temple courtyard buzzes again, with scribes and messengers. A young woman approaches, carrying a basket of papyrus rolls. Delivery for the vizier's office, she says. You offer to help carry them, because why not add temporary government intern to your Egyptian resume? The vizier's building is less sacred, more practical. Columns of ledgers, walls lined with cubbies filled with scrolls. Men argue softly about grain quotas and river measurements. A scribe at the front desk barely looks up when you enter. Another delivery. Put it there. You obey, setting the basket down. The room smells of ink, sweat, and bureaucracy. Timeless aromas of administration. A clerk waves you over. Can you hold this straightage for a moment? You do. He marks neat lines across a large map of the Nile Delta, annotating them with tiny symbols. Why track the flood levels each season? He explains. If the river's low, the Pharaoh adjusts taxes. Wait, so you're doing climate science? You ask, impressed. He tilts his head. We call it not angering happy. Affair. He adds, almost absently, historians will argue for ages whether we do this for faith or for food. You grin. They still do. As you leave the vizier's office, you spot a mural on the wall, an elegant depiction of Maat herself, the feathered goddess of balance, holding scales that weigh a human heart against a feather. The artistry is breathtaking, but the symbolism lands hard at the measure of a life, not by wealth or power, but by truth. That thought lingers as you and your friend walk back through the bustling city. The festival remnants still linger. Discarded garlands, faint music from distant taverns. But now everything feels steadier, quieter, ordered. Without Maat. Your friend says, echoing the priest, nothing holds. Sounds like a good rule to live by. You reply softly. The two of you stop by the river to rest. The cat from before appears again, perches nearby, and begins cleaning its paw with regal indifference. The Nile glows with afternoon light, smooth and endless. You stretch, sighing. So temples are banks, priests are managers, scribes are accountants, and the gods are the board of directors. Your friend laughs. Something like that. You grin. Then who's the janitor? He points at himself. You's always us. You both laugh, and for a moment, the timeless machinery of Egypt feels almost human. The endless rituals, the hierarchy, the divine paperwork, it all functions because ordinary people keep showing up, believing, recording, balancing. Maybe that's what Maat really means. Everyone holding their small piece of order, so the world doesn't unravel. You look down at your ink, stained fingers and smile. Guess I'm part of the system now. Welcome to eternity. Your friend says, and tosses you a reed pen. You twirl it between your fingers, grinning. No promises on neat handwriting. He smirks. Then you'll fit right in. You wake up to scratching. Not claws this time. Though with how many cats you've seen in this place, you half expect it. No, this is the deliberate rasp of reed on papyrus. Steady and rhythmic. You sit up and find yourself in a small courtyard filled with light and the faint scent of wet ink. All around you, artisans hunch over slabs of limestone, chiseling symbols with careful precision. Your host for the day, a wiry man with calloused hands and a smudge of soot across his nose, glances up. Morning, he says in a voice made rough by years of dust. You said you wanted to learn, right? You rub your eyes. Learn to write. He grins, revealing a missing tooth. To read the gods, traveler. Because that's what writing is. You look around at the hieroglyphs glowing in the sunlight. Birds, eyes, reeds, snakes, and wonder if you've accidentally walked into the world's first emoji workshop. He laughs when he catches your expression. You're thinking it looks like pictures. It isn't. Each mark has sound and meaning. Sometimes both, sometimes neither. That's the trick. He hands you a reed pen and a fragment of limestone. Try the word for life. You press the pen to the surface, hesitating. What's the symbol? He draws it quickly, a looped cross with a handle. The Ankh. Simple, he says. But don't let the gods hear you say that. Your first attempt looks more like a deformed balloon. He snorts, amused. It's a start. We all begin with wobbly Ankhs. You can tell he's proud of his work. Around the courtyard, dozens of apprentices copy rows of signs, reeds, scarabs, eyes of Horus. The walls are already layered with practice runs, some precise, others chaotic. One slab nearby reads like a diary of frustration. A perfectly carved symbol followed by a deeply gouged curse mark someone clearly made after messing up. Writing's not for everyone. Your teacher admits. Most people never get near it. But those who do well, we make sure no one forgets us. You nod. Because your words last forever. He smiles softly. Exactly. Stone remembers better than flesh. He guides you toward a wall being prepared for painting. The plaster is still damp, faintly cool to the touch. Artists work in silence, sketching outlines with red pigment before others trace over them in black. This one's for a noble's tomb, he explains. His afterlife are some, if you like. Sure enough, the reliefs tell the story of a man's life, him farming, him hunting, him receiving offerings from servants. He wants the gods to know he worked hard. Your teacher says, also that he had enough wealth to pay for all this. Basically an ancient LinkedIn profile. You joke. He tilts his head. LinkedIn. Never mind. You sigh. It's like carving your achievements online. Ah. He nods. Yes, that's accurate. Except our followers are eternal. You move along the wall, watching the scenes unfold like panels in a comic strip. There's humor here. Tiny servants squabbling, a cat stealing fish from a tray, a scribe rolling his eyes. You laugh, pointing it out. He grins.
You see it?
People think we're all solemn and divine. But we carve jokes too. The noble doesn't notice, but we do. Sometimes we sneak in a mouse chasing a cat instead of the other way around. That's brilliant. You say, so ancient graffiti. Graffiti? Satire, gossip, he shrugs. Call it what you want. We're people. He leads you down a narrow corridor lined with unfinished reliefs. This is where gossip really lives. He whispers conspiratorially. Every wall has secrets. One carving shows two men arguing in front of a scale. Another depicts a woman's side, eyeing her neighbor's bread basket. You can almost hear the drama. Historians still argue whether these small scenes were social commentary or just the artists having fun. He says, I think it's both. You pause at a crude doodle scratched into the wall, a donkey playing a harp. That's not official art, right? He laughs. That's from a worker who hated his overseer. Said he had the voice of a donkey. Immortalized him for all time. You grin. Revenge art. Timeless. In another chamber, a young scribe reads aloud from a fresh scroll. His voice rises and falls like music. You can't understand every word, but you catch fragments, love poems, riddles, stories about clever peasants outwitting cruel masters. Those are for festivals, your teacher explains. Or for private laughter. You can tell a lot about a people from their jokes. He lowers his voice, almost proud. We had satire before Rome, before Greece even. We wrote songs mocking lazy scribes, and hymns about beer that gets stronger the longer you dance. You chuckle. So Egypt invented memes too. And blinks. Memes. Never mind. It's like sharing funny ideas. Then yes, he says seriously. We invented memes. You spend hours copying hieroglyphs, your fingers cramping, your tongue sticking out in concentration. The heat makes the ink dry too fast, and by midday, your hands look like you lost a fight with an octopus. When you finally stop to rest, he hands you a cup of beer. Thick, sour, but oddly refreshing. To the scribes, he says, clinking his cup to yours. We'll remember what others forget. As the sun lowers, the courtyard grows quieter. A few apprentices light oil lamps, their flames flickering across walls that shimmer with gold paint. The entire space seems to hum with memory. Come, your teacher says, motioning for you to follow. There's one more thing you should see. He leads you into a small side room, stacked high with scrolls. The smell of papyrus fills the air, earthy and dry. This is the House of Life, he explains reverently. Every temple has one. We copy old texts. Keep the words alive. You run your fingers along the scrolls. What happens if one's lost? He frowns, as though you've suggested something obscene. Then we rewrite it. The words can't die. He unrolls one carefully, revealing elegant black and red hieratic script. A spell from the Book of the Dead, for safe passage to the afterlife. You read the first line aloud, haltingly. May my heart be weighed, and not found wanting. He nods approvingly. Well done. You've just spoken eternity's password. Outside, the last light of day fades. You help extinguish lamps, the ink smell lingering on your hands. On the way back to your sleeping mat, you pass a wall freshly painted with a scene of the afterlife lush gardens. Cool water, gentle music. In the corner, someone has added a tiny, smiling scribe holding an ankh and a beer jug. You grin. Did you do that? Your teacher shrugs, eyes twinkling. Maybe. Maybe not. He glances toward the stars beginning to appear overhead. The sky is the gods' writing too, you know. We read it when we forget how to read ourselves. You lie down under the open night, your mind buzzing with symbols. Each star looks like a dot of ink on the universe's own papyrus. You imagine the gods watching from above, nodding at the day's inscriptions. Somewhere, a cat yowls. Someone laughs. A reed pen scratches one last line before sleep. And you, new apprentice of the ancient meme makers, close your eyes and dream in hieroglyphs. You wake up to the unmistakable scent of incense. Sweet, heavy, and just a bit unsettling. The air feels different this morning, slower, deliberate. People walk past your mat carrying baskets of natron, linen, and jars sealed with wax. You blink, groggy, and realize you've somehow wandered into the one place you've been nervously avoiding, the house of embalming. Your guide from yesterday appears, now wearing a serious expression and a strip of linen over his mouth. Today, he says, you will learn how we keep the body safe for eternity. You swallow. I was kind of hoping for pottery, or maybe more hieroglyphs. He chuckles softly. Everyone hopes that, until they die. That joke lands heavier than usual. The room is lit by oil lamps, their flames wavering in the still air. In the center lies a body already half prepared. Skin pale, abdomen open neatly. You take a small step back, but your guide gestures reassuringly. No fear. This is sacred work. The body is the home of the Kur, the spirit self. If we care for it properly, the Ka can find its way home forever. You nod, trying to breathe through your mouth. And if you don't, then the soul gets lost, he says simply. And no one wants to wander eternity homeless. Historians still argue whether ordinary Egyptians truly believed in literal soul preservation, or whether mummification was more about social status and respect. But standing here, with priests chanting and incense, curling like smoke snakes toward the ceiling, belief doesn't seem theoretical. It's thick in the air. A priest steps forward, holding a jar shaped like a falcon. The liver, he murmurs, placing it reverently on a shelf. For Kibasinuif. Another priest sets down a jackal-headed jar. The stomach for Demutif. You recognize the scene from museum displays, but in real life, it's astonishingly tender. Every movement feels choreographed, every gesture purposeful. You glance at the 4 canopic jars lined up neatly. Jackal, human, baboon, each one guarding an organ like a mythic babysitter. What about the brain? You ask before you can stop yourself. Your guide smirks. We remove it. It is useless. You blink. Useless. He shrugs. The heart does the thinking. Everyone knows that. You can't help it. You laugh. That explains so much about history. He grins under his Lenin mask. We follow the heart, always. A priest steps forward, lifting a delicate curved hook from a tray. Would you like to see? You back away fast enough to bump into a shelf of natron. I'm good. Totally good. The priest chuckles and sets the tool down. The trick is through the nose. He says conversationally, but you must be gentle. Too much force, and you ruin the face. That's comforting. You manage. You notice the smell isn't as awful as you expected. The natron, white crystals piled high, absorbs everything, even fear. Your guide explains, the body dries for 40 days, give or take. It's the same number as in many sacred cycles. Balance must be kept. He picks up a bundle of herbs and resins. We use these to keep the air pure and the spirit calm. Myrrh, cedar, cinnamon. Expensive things for important people. You glance around. And what about the poor? He hesitates. They are buried with love, if not with linen. That answer hits you harder than expected. A young apprentice approaches, carrying strips of clean white fabric. He hands one to you with a grin. Wrap, he says simply. You take it carefully, fingers brushing the smooth weave. Like this. You ask, mimicking the careful spiral motions you've seen. He nods approvingly. Good. Firm. But not cruel. You can't tell if he's talking about bandages or philosophy. The process takes hours, maybe days. It's hard to track time in this dim, timeless chamber. By the end, the body is transformed, no longer a person, but something beyond. Serene, almost regal. Know the mask, your guide says softly. The gold, painted face gleams in the lamplight, serene and eternal. So they will be recognized when the soul returns. You watch as they lay the mummy gently in a painted coffin. The artwork is intricate, symbols of protection, eyes of Horus, prayers written in looping script. You read a few aloud quietly, remembering yesterday's lessons. May your heart be light as the feather of Maat. Your guide smiles faintly. You learn quickly. Maybe you've done this before. Let's hope not. You whisper. He laughs softly. Don't worry. We all do it eventually. The coffin is carried to a larger chamber where relatives wait. They chant prayers, voices trembling but steady. Offerings of bread, onions, and small clay figures are placed nearby. Tiny servants for the afterlife. A child cries softly, clutching a small amulet shaped like an ankh. You reach down instinctively and ruffle his hair. He looks up at you with solemn eyes. They'll wake again, won't they? He asks. You nod gently. That's the plan. The family departs, leaving the chamber quiet again. Your guide turns to you. Now comes the test. The weighing of the heart. He gestures to a painted wall, where a vivid scene stretches across the plaster. The dead man stands before a giant scale. On one side, his heart on the other. The feather of Maat. The jackal, headed Anubis overseas, and the ibis, headed Thoth records the result. Waiting nearby is Amit, the devourer, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo. If the heart is heavy with lies, your guide explains softly, Amit eats it, and the soul is no more. You stare at the painting, the details so alive they almost move. Do you think it's real? You ask quietly. He folds his arms, thinking. Historians will argue about that for eternity, he says. Though you're fairly certain he doesn't know what a historian is. But I've seen hearts lighter than air, and others that sink before the scales even touch. Maybe that's real enough. He leads you outside into the harsh sunlight. The sky feels too bright after so much dim reverence. The smell of resin clings to your hair. The sound of chanting still echoes in your ears. You feel hollowed out, but oddly peaceful. As you walk along the riverbank, you spot a cluster of farmers preparing a small tomb. It's simpler. No gold, no paintings. But they're just as careful. They sing softly as they lay their friend to rest, covering him with mats and wildflowers. See, your guide says quietly, the rich get pyramids. The poor get sand. But everyone gets remembered by someone. You nod, watching as they place a single loaf of bread beside the body. For the journey, one of them says, it's such a small gesture, but it feels profound, like a note slipped into the pocket of time itself. That night, back in your borrowed room, you can't sleep. The air feels too still. You find yourself tracing the shape of an ankh in the dust, the symbol of life looping endlessly back into itself. You think about hearts and feathers, about truth and balance, about how much of this ancient ritual is really just humanity's oldest question. What happens next? You fall asleep eventually, and your dreams are strange. You're walking down a long corridor lined with painted walls. Your footsteps echo softly. At the end stands a tall figure with a jackal's head, holding a scale. He looks at you, unreadable, then gestures toward your chest. You feel your heart rise, light as a bird. When you wake, dawn is breaking, and you're still alive. Mostly. You smile faintly, whispering into the cool morning air, "Guess my heart passed the test." Somewhere far away, a priest begins to sing. You wake to shouting. Not festival shouting, not the good kind with flutes and dancing. This is frantic, whisper, yelling panic. You roll over on your reed mat and find your friend crouched by the doorway, motioning wildly for you to get up. "What?" You croak. "Is the Nile on fire?" He grins, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Better. We're going treasure hunting." You sit up fast enough to make your neck crack. "You mean grave robbing, don't you?" He shrugs. Semantics. Before you can protest, he tosses you a hooded linen cloak. "Come on." The guards change shift before dawn. "We'll be quick." You're not sure why you follow him. Curiosity, boredom, or maybe the same reckless instinct that makes people today read horror stories at midnight. But before long, you're hiking through the cool pre-dawn desert, the moon sharp as a silver coin over the Thaban cliffs. The Valley of the Kings stretches before you like a cracked ribcage. The tomb entrances gape in the rock, half buried by sand, each one whispering secrets older than iron. Your friend kneels beside one, brushing sand from the carved lintel. "This one?" He murmurs, "a nobleman's tomb. Long forgotten." You whisper back, "How do you know it's forgotten?" He flashes a grin. "Because I forgot to tell anyone we found it." You groan softly. You're terrible at this. Inside, the air hits you like the breath of an oven. Hot, stale, heavy with the scent of resin and old linen. You hold your torch high. The walls bloom with color in the flickering light, gods and mortals, prayers and promises, scenes of harvests that look more peaceful than any life could have been. Beautiful. You breathe. Expensive. He corrects. Every inch of this took weeks. You can tell by the paint. Lapis, not indigo. You glance around. You sound like a museum guide. He smirks. I sound like someone who knows what sells. Historians still argue whether ancient tomb robbers were outlaws, desperate laborers, or just government employees supplementing their pay. Judging by his confident swagger, you're guessing option 3. He gestures toward a sealed doorway at the far end. The plaster is intact but thin. You ready? No, you say truthfully. He prays at the seal with a bronze chisel until it cracks with a sigh of dust. A smell like spices and decay leaks out. You cough, waving it away. "You first." He grins. "Gentlemen." Inside, your torchlight reveals the burial chamber, small but ornate. The coffin is painted in gold and blue, surrounded by jars, amulets, and a surprisingly lifelike statue of the deceased. The man's painted eyes seem to follow you. "Creepy." You whisper. "Profitable." Your friend whispers back, already scanning the shelves. "Take the small things first. No curses on those." You hesitate. "Did you just say no curses like you've done this before?" He smirks. "A few times." "Only got boils once." You stare at him. That's not reassuring. He starts unwrapping a linen bundle, revealing delicate jewelry, gold bangles, a tiny falcon pendant, and a ring carved with hieroglyphs. It glints faintly in the torchlight. He slips the ring on and wiggles his fingers. See? Perfect fit. You wince. That's not going to end well. As if on cue, something shifts in the shadows. Just a pebble rolling, maybe. But the air feels thicker. Did you hear that? You whisper. He freezes. Probably a rat. The torch sputters, then steadies. You glance at the painted wall again. One scene shows Anubis weighing hearts. Another shows Amit devouring the wicked. The paint seems fresher than it should. You take a step back. I think we should go. He waves you off. Relax. The dead don't care about us. A low thunk echoes behind you. You spin. Nothing. Just the sarcophagus, silent and still. Your heart thuds loud enough to echo. Your friend pockets the jewelry. See. Easy. As you climb back toward the surface, a faint rumble shakes the passage. Sand trickles from the ceiling. You look up, panicked. Is that? Go! He yells, shoving you forward. You stumble out just as the entry collapses behind you in a cloud of dust. You both lie there gasping under the cold stars, faces streaked with sweat and grit. Still worth it. You wheeze. He coughs, grinning weakly. Definitely. Then he holds up the ring, now dull and blackened. Okay, maybe not. You both burst out laughing, half from relief, half from hysteria. When dawn breaks, the desert glows gold and red. You sit on a boulder, watching the sun crawl over the cliffs. So what happens to the loot now? You ask. He tucks the ring into a pouch. We sell some, hide some. Give the gods their share. Their share. He nods. Always leave something behind. You take without offering. They notice. That feels less like superstition and more like wisdom. Later, you wander into a nearby village, where a group of workers huddle over bread and beer. One older man listens as your friend tells the story, embellishing wildly. The listeners laugh, shake their heads, but one of them, a woman with a scar along her cheek, leans in. Did you say the tomb of Neb? Ra. He pauses. Maybe. Why? She looks uneasy. That tome's under the protection of the priesthood. Anyone caught there loses their hands. You both freeze. You whisper. Tell me that's an exaggeration. She doesn't smile. They take Ma seriously around here. You feel the blood drain from your face. We should probably leave town. Your friend stands abruptly. Good idea. That night, you camp far from the valley. The stars above look colder now. Sharper. Every sound makes you flinch. The wind through rocks, the hiss of sand shifting. You can't help replaying the rumble in the tomb. The sudden collapse. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. Historians still argue whether Egyptian curses were symbolic or psychological, warnings to scare off thieves. But out here, under this vast indifferent sky, symbolism feels plenty real. Your friend tosses another twig on the fire. You know, he says quietly, some say the gods don't punish you right away. They wait. Comforting. You mutter. He shrugs. At least the stories live on. He's right about that. The next morning, as you trudge toward the river, you pass a group of guards hauling a bound man on a rope. His hands are uninjured, but his expression is pure terror. One of the guards mutters, "Caught trying to open a noble's tomb." Said he heard voices calling him. You and your friend exchange a silent look and keep walking. By midday, you reach the edge of the village, where a small shrine stands half buried in sand. Someone has carved a single word into the lintel. Ma'at. Balance. Without thinking, you reach into your pouch, take out the blackened ring, and set it on the altar. The metal catches the light for a moment before sinking into shadow. Your friend watches. You sure? You nod. I don't need to take anything from this place. He smiles faintly. Then maybe you'll last another day. You laugh softly. Maybe. As you head back toward the Nile, you feel lighter, like your heart's been weighed, and for once, found balanced. The wind shifts behind you, whispering through the stones, and for just a second, You could swear you hear someone laughing. Deep, warm, approving. Probably just the breeze. Probably. You tug your hood tighter, grin at your companion, and say, "So, what's next?" He grins back. "How do you feel about queens, politics, and poison?" You groan. "Oh no, you're talking about her, aren't you?" He nods. Cleopatra. The word hangs in the air like a spell, gleaming with danger. The world shifts, and when your eyes open again, Egypt has changed. Gone are the colossal pyramids that once loomed like the ribs of gods. Gone are the rigid lines of ancient dynasties. The sand is still here. Sand never leaves. But the horizon now bristles with marble and columns. Greek words on Egyptian stone. The Nile still breathes, slow and eternal, but its banks hum with a different music, the clatter of Roman sandals. The whisper of silk, the hiss of politics. Welcome. Your friend says, appearing beside you as if he's always been there. To Alexandria, the city where Egypt met the world, and the world got confused. You blink at the dazzling harbour, before you ships from Cyprus, Syria, Rome, all bobbing in the turquoise water. The lighthouse, the great Pharaoh's, rises higher than any temple you've seen, its light sweeping the sea like a god's eye. You breathe in the salt air, tinged with smoke and honey. It feels new, but old. He smiles. That's Alexandria. Half miracle, half mess. You follow him through the crowded streets. Greeks argue in shaded courtyards. Scholars scribble notes under colonnades, and somewhere in the distance, a flute competes with the shouts of fishmongers. The air smells of seaweed, olives, and ambition. And then, as you pass a fresco of the goddess Isis enthroned beside a Roman eagle, your friend leans in. You wanted Cleopatra, right? Queen, politician, myth, disaster. You nod. All of the above. He grins. Good. Because she's all of those, and more than the gossip says. You turn a corner and nearly collide with a parade. Priests in linen, soldiers in bronze, and at the center, a golden litter draped with gauze. You glimpse a profile through the shimmer sharp, intelligent eyes, the curve of a mouth used to giving orders. That's her, your friend whispers. Cleopatra vi Philopator, last pharaoh of Egypt, last to speak the old tongue. You barely breathe as she passes. The crowd bows, but also watches with suspicion. You can feel it. The tension between adoration and fear. Cleopatra smiles at no one in particular, yet everyone believes she's smiling at them. She doesn't look like the statues. You whisper. He shakes his head. She isn't meant to. Historians still argue whether she was beautiful or just brilliant. But either way, she could make generals forget their own names. You follow the procession toward the palace. Alexandria gleams. White marble courtyards, gardens of lotus and jasmine, fountains singing in the heat. But under the shine, soldiers whisper in Latin, and coins bear Caesar's face beside hers. Rom's here, you murmur. Rom's everywhere, he replies. She's keeping Egypt alive with charm and negotiation. Imagine dancing on quicksand for 20 years and making it look graceful. He gestures toward the harbour, where ships glitter like scales. That's her real power. Control of grain. Rome eats because Egypt grows. She knows it, and so does everyone else. Inside the palace, time feels thick. You sneak along a corridor lined with mosaics. Cleopatra as Isis, crowned with the sun disk, flanked by cobras. In one chamber, scholars debate philosophy in Greek, while servants bring trays of figs. In another, a young Roman officer reads a letter aloud. The wax seal bears a familiar name, Antonius. You glance at your friend, Mark Antony. He nods. The second Roman to lose his heart here. You grin. And the first was Julius Caesar. He finishes. But love's only half the story. Politics is the rest. He leads you up a spiral staircase overlooking the sea. Cleopatra used intelligence as a weapon. She spoke 9 languages. She studied medicine, astronomy, law. When Caesar came, she saw opportunity. When Antony came, she saw survival. You pause beside a balcony, where the breeze carries the scent of lotus flowers. And yet, you say softly, people remember her as a seductress. He sighs. People always fear women who win at their own game. Below, Cleopatra appears again, this time in a simpler robe, speaking to advisors. Her voice carries, low and clear. If Rome sees weakness, they will take everything, she says in Greek. So we must never show fear, even when we drown in it. You whisper, that's terrifyingly modern. He nods. Power never changes. Only the costumes. On as night falls, the palace becomes a dreamscape of torchlight and shadows. Music drifts from a banquet hall. You slip closer, peering through the doorway. Cleopatra reclines on a couch of gold and ivory, speaking with Mark Antony, whose laughter fills the room like thunder. He's handsome in the way that always spells trouble. His armor gleams even off-duty. When he looks at her, the whole room seems to tilt slightly, like a ship leaning into the wind. Historians still argue whether it was love or strategy. Your friend murmurs, maybe both. She played him like a lyre, and he thought he was conducting the orchestra. You smile. That's poetic. He shrugs. So was their downfall. You watch them drink from jeweled cups, laughing softly at private jokes. Cleopatra tells a story, something about a pearl dissolved in wine. The guests gasp. Antony applauds. You recognize the gesture of power disguised as charm. The subtle reminder that she can turn luxury itself into performance. Later, when the music fades and the guests drift away, you see her alone at the balcony, staring out over the dark sea. The mask of the queen slips, and for a heartbeat, she's just a woman, tired, calculating, maybe afraid. She knows it's ending. You whisper. Your friend nods. Rome never shares power. It only borrows it. He tells you of the wars to come, of Actium, of defeat, of the serpent in the basket. They'll say she died for love, he says bitterly. But she died for sovereignty. You stand in silence, the surf below crashing like distant drums. Somewhere far away, the great library burns. Not all at once, not in a single night, but slowly, over years, through neglect and politics. You can almost smell the parchment, the knowledge turning to smoke. Why does it all fade? You ask quietly. The temples, the kings, even her. He looks at you, eyes reflecting the firelight. Because memory is a jealous god. It only keeps what people feed it. You think of the scribes you met, the tomb paintings, the hieroglyphs carved to last forever. So Egypt's still alive, isn't it? Just sleeping under dust. He smiles faintly. Exactly. Down below, Cleopatra disappears into the shadows of her palace, and the torches go out one by one. You walk away through the moonlit streets of Alexandria, past broken statues and marble fountains whispering stories. The sea murmurs like it knows what's coming. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Octavian sharpens his plans, and the old gods prepare to go quiet. When you reach the edge of the city, your friend stops and points to the stars. See that? The great star above the horizon. You nod. The Romans say it's Caesar's soul. Egyptians say it's Isis searching for Osiris. I say it's just light traveling too far to die. You smile softly. That's beautiful. He grins. Don't get poetic on me now. We've got centuries left. You glance back once more at the fading glow of Alexandria. The queen who defied empires still lingers in the air, the perfume of ambition and survival. The city hums quietly, like a memory refusing to be forgotten. Come on, your friend says, turning toward the desert. The gods may have gone quiet, but their people still whisper. You follow, the sand cold beneath your feet, the stars bright as ever. Shaword count 2, 057. You walk until the grand marble of Alexandria fades behind you, replaced once again by clay and straw, by the humble rhythm of village life. The empire may have shifted, The rulers may wear foreign crowns, but Egypt, real Egypt, still breathes in the quiet courtyards and flickering oil lamps of its people. Here, beneath low mud, brick roofs, the world feels smaller, but more alive. Children chase goats through alleys, women grind grain in steady, ancient rhythm, and men mend fishing nets along the riverbank. You smell baking bread, hear the clack of weaving looms, feel the pulse of the Nile again beneath it all. You've come to learn what survives when empires crumble. Not gold, not marble, but faith, personal, intimate, ordinary magic that slips between cracks of history and never dies. Your friend gestures toward a doorway draped with faded cloth. This, he says, is what the historians forget. The world of household gods. Inside, it's dim and cool. Clay walls, a small hearth, a sleeping mat, and on a shelf, a little shrine. A carved cat, a painted eye, a figure of Tauret, the hippo goddess of childbirth. Someone has tucked a flower beside her, wilted but fragrant. You step closer, whispering, "They kept their gods even after Rome came." He nods. "Always. You can change kings. You can change language. But you don't tell a mother to stop praying for her child." He's right. Even in the Roman era, Egyptian homes still held charms, amulets, and spells copied from papyri older than the pyramids. Magic wasn't superstition here. It was survival. On a small wooden table sits a bowl of salt and natron, a bit of honey, and a tiny copper knife. A protection spell. Your friend explains. You draw a circle, whisper the words, and the evil eye stays outside. You can almost hear the murmur of generations repeating those words, their faith steady as the Nile's tide. You turn toward the doorway, where a cat lounges, golden eyes half-lidded. It flicks its tail, assessing you. Bastet's messenger, your friend teases. Better hope she likes you. You bow solemnly to the cat. It yawns in response, a royal gesture of indifference. "Rough crowd," you murmur. He grins. Cats were once punishable by death if harmed, remember. Egypt was basically an early cat monarchy. You chuckle. Makes sense. They still run the internet. He laughs softly. Some things never change. Outside, the sun slips lower. You walk through the village as lamps begin to glow in doorways. Each home has its own rhythm, its own blend of old and new. Greek charms beside Egyptian symbols, Roman coins beside tiny scarabs. Faith here isn't a single story, it's a college. At one doorway, a grandmother hums a lullaby, while drawing an eye of Horus on her grandchild's forehead with soot. For health, she says softly when she catches your curious glance. For seeing what others cannot. Her words echo in your mind. For seeing what others cannot. Later, at the edge of the village, you find a scribe's workshop. Scrolls, ink, and careful handwriting fill the tiny room. On the desk lies a papyrus covered in symbols. Not hieroglyphs exactly, but something simpler, quicker. Demotic script. Your friend nods toward it. Language evolves, but magic doesn't. That's a healing spell. Garlic, honey, and a prayer to Isis. You'd probably call it herbal medicine now. You read the first line aloud, your tongue stumbling over ancient sounds. The air feels heavier for a moment, like the room is listening. He raises an eyebrow. Careful. Some of those words still work. You grin nervously. What? You think I'll summon a cobra? Or fix your sinuses? Either way, results. The scribe himself appears, bowing slightly. He's old, with steady hands and patient eyes. "You're welcome to copy a blessing," he says in Greek, accented Egyptian. "Everyone needs protection in times like these." You hesitate. Even strangers. He smiles faintly. Especially strangers. He dips his reed pen and draws a small ink on your wrist. The ink feels cool. "For life," he murmurs. It's not magic you can see, but you feel something calm settle beneath your skin, a kind of warmth that isn't heat. Outside, night deepens. You follow your friend to the riverbank, where small candles float on lotus leaves, drifting toward the horizon. Festival, you ask. Every night's a small one, he says. When someone's sick, or gone, or just in need of luck, you light a candle, whisper a wish, and let the Nile carry it. You kneel beside him, light a candle from his flame. The breeze nearly snuffs it out, but you shield it carefully. What should I wish for? You ask. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. The Nile hears everything, even silence. You let the candle drift into the current, its little glow bobbing among dozens of others. The reflection turns the river into a galaxy. You whisper something you don't plan, maybe don't even understand. Just gratitude, maybe. For breath, for time, for the strange privilege of walking through worlds long gone. Historians still argue whether Egyptians really believed in household gods, your friend says quietly. But I think belief isn't the point. It's comfort. It's continuity. You nod. Like telling yourself a story so the dark doesn't win. He smiles. Exactly. You both sit in silence, the soft splash of water the only sound. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a flute, slow, mournful, but gentle. The kind of tune that could carry you to sleep. You lean back against the warm sand. So, you think the gods still watch. He gazes at the stars. If they ever left, they'd have taken the stories with them. And yet, here we are, telling them again. You close your eyes, feeling the night breeze brush your face. The smell of lotus and smoke lingers. When you open them again, your friend is tracing something in the sand. A spiral, then a line through it. That, he says, is the symbol of time here, not a straight path. A loop. You tilt your head, like life returning, or history repeating, he says. Egypt's good at both. A rooster crows somewhere in the distance, announcing the slow crawl of dawn. The candles have burned out, but their ashes still drift on the water. You stretch, yawning. Where to next? He looks east, toward the dunes. Where everything ends, and begins again. You sigh. That sounds ominous, he grins. Good. You're learning. You rise, brushing sand from your cloak, taking one last look at the sleeping village. Cats curl on rooftops, the first sunlight turning their fur to molten gold. The Nile hums, eternal, and as you step toward the desert once more, you think of the small shrine, the grandmother's song, the flickering candles on the river. The empire may shift, the language may fade, but these small acts of faith, these quiet sparks of human hope, feel immortal. You smile to yourself. Maybe you wouldn't last a day in Egypt, but you're starting to understand how Egypt lasted thousands of years. The sand stretches wider now, endless, shimmering, and silent. The soft hum of the Nile fades behind you until it's just memory, replaced by the whisper of wind sculpting dunes into ancient waves. You and your friend walk where no path exists, following a faint line of half, buried stones that might once have been a road. It's quieter than any place you've been before. Even your breathing feels loud. The sun floats pale and merciless above, casting mirages that flicker like ghosts. This is it. Your friend murmurs, his voice small against the horizon. The place where empires vanish. You squint at the distance. Doesn't look like much. He smiles faintly. It never does. That's how the desert wins. It doesn't destroy. It forgets. You walk until you stumble upon the remains of a temple. Just a few columns jutting from the sand like broken teeth. Carvings peek through the drifts, falcons, ankhs, the curve of a goddess's face. You brush the sand away gently. The stone beneath feels warm, alive somehow, as if the past still breathes through it. Whose temple? You ask softly. He shrugs. Could have been Isis. Or maybe a local god whose name didn't make it into history. The desert doesn't play favorites. Inside the ruin, a fallen lintel bears faint hieroglyphs. You trace them with your fingers, reading slowly. To live again, the name must be spoken. You whisper the words aloud. The air stirs, barely a breeze, but enough to lift a curl of sand from the floor. You smile. Guess someone heard me. Or your friend chuckles. Careful. Around here, echoes have opinions. You sit in the shade of the crumbling wall, sipping from your water skin. The horizon ripples like molten glass. How does a place this grand just disappear? He glances at the dunes. Time, politics, earthquakes, greed, or maybe just boredom. When people stop telling a story, it sinks. You think of the grand temples you saw earlier in your journey. The towering pillars, the chants, the festivals. And the gods, he shrugs. They fade slower. Every windstorm is a whisper of prayer that hasn't quite given up. He gestures toward the distant desert. Out there, under the sand, whole cities sleep. Memphis, Tanis, Heracleon, places that once buzzed like Alexandria. Historians still argue whether some were swallowed by floods or just abandoned when the river shifted. The Nile's generosity is fickle. It gives, and then it takes back. You stand and follow him to the ridge above the ruin. From here, the landscape seems endless. The dunes roll like ocean waves frozen in motion. You can almost hear them sighing. A deep, patient rhythm that's been here longer than any king. Your friend kneels, scooping up a handful of sand and letting it pour through his fingers. Each grain is a story, he says, and most will never be read again. You frown. That's depressing. He grins. It's poetic. Don't ruin it. As you continue walking, you stumble upon something glinting under the sunlight. You kneel and dig. A corner of pottery, painted faintly with blue lotus petals. Nearby, a shard of gold leaf clings to a pebble. You hold it up, marveling. Someone's offering? Your friend says. Probably left during a festival centuries ago. You smile. They'd probably be thrilled to know it's still here. Or furious that you touched it. You drop it gently back into the sand. Fair point. He chuckles. Egyptians believed the desert was alive. Not empty, just patient. It waits for everything to return to it, even us. That thought sits heavy for a while. You walk in silence, watching dust devils twist across the horizon like spirits dancing. The heat makes everything shimmer. Distant temples, phantom rivers, maybe even mirages of the lives that once thrived here. Then, out of nowhere, you spot movement. A caravan small, but real this time. Traders, wrapped in long robes, their camels laden with goods. They greet you with cautious curiosity, offer dates and water. Their leader, an older man with a lined face, gestures toward the north. Ruins that way, he says. Old as the world. The sand gives them back after storms. You follow their direction until you reach the edge of a vast hollow. There, half buried, lie colossal statues. Their faces eroded, their eyes blind but somehow still watching. You can't help whispering. They look sad. Your friend nods. They remember being worshipped. You walk among the fallen stone giants. A shattered sphinx lies on its side, wings half gone. The wind hums through cracks in its surface, making a low, mournful sound. You swear it almost resembles music. Historians still argue whether this was a royal necropolis or a failed city, your friend says quietly. But I think the desert just reclaimed what people forgot to love. You glance up at the massive stone face, its smile long vanished. Maybe it's better this way, you whisper. Eternal, untouched. He smiles faintly. Maybe. Or maybe it's just waiting for someone to remember its name again. You sit on a fallen block, gazing at the endless expanse of sand. There's something humbling about this silence, the realization that every story, no matter how loud, eventually becomes a whisper. And yet, whispers can travel far. You think about Cleopatra's laughter echoing through her marble halls. About the workers sweating under the sun to build pyramids. About the old woman drawing protective symbols on her grandchild's forehead. All of them gone? Yet still here, somehow, in the dust, the light, the air. Do you think? You ask softly. Someone will walk over our ruins one day. Your friend smiles, squinting toward the horizon. Oh, absolutely. And they'll mispronounce our names too. You laugh. Typical. The sun begins to set, and the desert transforms. The heat dies down, replaced by a cool breeze that smells faintly of earth and stone. Shadows stretch long across the dunes, turning gold to purple. The silence deepens until it feels sacred. You lie back on the sand, staring at the first stars winking awake. They used to say the stars were the souls of the righteous. Your friend murmurs. Every time you see one fall, it's a spirit being reborn. You smile sleepily. That's a comforting thought. He nods. Egypt was always good at comforting people about death. Makes sense when you spend eternity preparing for it. You both laugh softly, the sound swallowed by the vastness. Somewhere, far beyond the dunes, a faint rumble rolls through the air. The earth trembles just enough to make the sand shift around you. Earthquake? You ask. Or memory? He says. Sometimes the past stirs. As the stars multiply overhead, the desert begins to cool. You wrap your cloak tighter, feeling the chill seep into your bones. The dunes around you gleam under moonlight, ghostly white. And in that stillness, you realize something the desert doesn't erase. It preserves. It holds onto everything, patiently waiting for someone curious enough to uncover it again. You smile to yourself, a quiet kind of peace filling your chest. You whisper, maybe that's why Egypt never really dies. Your friend nods slowly. Exactly. Because someone, somewhere, always dreams it back into being. The wind picks up, carrying a whisper that might be words, might be nothing. You close your eyes and let it pass over you, the sand cool against your skin, the stars infinite above. When you open them again, the horizon glows faintly. Not with sunrise yet, but with promise. Tomorrow, you think, you'll see what still survives in the museums of the modern world. But tonight belongs to silence, to the dunes, and to the soft heartbeat of eternity pulsing beneath the sand. At first, that's all you know. The faint reflection of your face staring back from a clean, museum display case. The hum of air conditioning replaces the desert wind. The sand, the heat, the cries of the Nile, they're all gone. In their place, polished marble floors, white walls, the quiet shuffle of shoes, and the distant murmur of tourists whispering in a dozen languages. You blink, disoriented. Your reflection looks slightly out of place here. Hair dusty, eyes tired, maybe still carrying the ghost of the desert. Your friend stands beside you, hands in his pockets, gazing at the relic inside the case. It's small, a ring, blackened, cracked at one edge. You recognize it instantly. The tomb, you whisper. You left that ring on the altar. He nods, smiling faintly. Guess someone found it. The label beneath reads Bronze Ring, Late New Kingdom. Provenance unknown. You exhale softly. All that, and it's just another provenance unknown. History's full of lost addresses, he says quietly. But at least it's here. Remembered. You walk together through the museum's halls. The glass cases glitter with the fragments of millennia. Scarabs, papyri, canopic jars, amulets, statues. Each one frozen in perfect lighting, their shadows clean and sharp. But beneath that perfection, you can almost hear the murmur of the world. They came from the chatter of markets, the hiss of river reeds, the whisper of prayers. You pause before a mummy, wrapped carefully in layers of linen. Its painted face gazes out with calm certainty, eyes half open, as if waiting. Do you think they knew? You ask softly. That we'd still be looking at them 3,000 years later. Your friend tilts his head. They hoped. The Egyptians didn't believe in endings. They believed in returns. You stare at the mummy's serene smile and feel something unexpected, not fear, Not fascination, but recognition. Behind you, a tour guide drones facts to a small group. This coffin belonged to a priest of Amun. Note the use of cobalt pigment. Uncommon, imported, expensive. You smile faintly. We're still talking about wealth, even after death. He grins. Some obsessions never die. As you move through the exhibit, you catch fragments of other lives. The playful carvings of a scribe joking with a friend. A letter from a soldier to his wife. Tell the cat I miss her. He wrote, because of course he did, and a child's doll carved from ivory. You murmur. They always get lost in the big stories. Not lost, he says. Just quiet. Listen close enough, and you'll hear them laughing through the cracks. He gestures to a faded piece of linen embroidered, with an eye of Horus. Protection charm. Someone probably stitched that for a journey. Maybe the same kind you just took. You look down at your hands. The faint ink of the scribe's ink mark has almost vanished. But when you shift your wrist in the light, you could swear it glimmers. A nearby plaque catches your eye. Ancient Egypt remains one of humanity's most enduring civilizations. Its people lived, loved, built, believed. And in doing so, they taught the world how to last. You smile. That's the moral, isn't it? He laughs softly. You make it sound like a bedtime story. You nudge him. That's what this is, remember. He nods. Then I suppose it's time to end it properly. He leads you toward the exit, through a hall of colossal statues. Each one stares down with that same ageless gaze. Half divine, half human, fully unbothered by the centuries. The last one, a statue of Isis, seems almost to watch you leave. Outside, evening settles over the modern city. Cars glide past, neon flickers, and the smell of hot pavement replaces myrrh and lotus. Yet something of Egypt still lingers here. The hush between sounds, the rhythm of footsteps, the quiet dignity in people's eyes. You stand on the museum steps, looking up at the night sky. The same constellations you saw above the desert shimmer faintly through city haze. You made it. Your friend says softly. From the sand to the glass. Not many do, you laugh. And I didn't even lose my heart to a feather. He grins. That's debatable. You breathe in the cool air, feeling both ancient and brand new. Egypt didn't break you, it changed you. It showed you that endurance isn't about strength, but about memory. About leaving something behind that whispers, I was here. Your friend steps back, fading slightly at the edges, as though the shadows are reclaiming him. Wet, you say. You're leaving. He smiles. I was never really here, just part of the story. You want to argue, but his voice softens, blending with the evening hum. Keep telling it. That's how Egypt stays alive. And then he's gone. You stand alone for a moment, the city buzzing quietly around you. Somewhere inside the museum, tourists still drift between glass cases, whispering the names of gods and kings, without realizing they're feeding them back into the world. You smile. Maybe that's the real magic. Every retelling, every fascination, every bedtime story that refuses to fade. You start walking. The echo of sandals and sneakers, merging into one long rhythm of history, still marching forward. And as you glance up one last time at the stars, you could swear one blinks brighter, just for you. Wind down 300 words. So now, as the echoes of Egypt settle softly around you, slow your breathing. The sandstorms are gone, the torches are out, and the world has gone wonderfully quiet again. Picture yourself drifting along the Nile. Not the real river, but the one that runs through dreams. Its water is cool, silver under moonlight, carrying tiny ripples that sound almost like lullabies. The temples are distant silhouettes now, fading behind a veil of mist. Somewhere, a reed flute plays the same ancient tune you've heard in every era. A melody that knows how to find your heartbeat and slow it. You can almost see the flicker of candles on the river, the small wishes of 1,000 forgotten hands floating gently toward the horizon. Maybe one of them was yours. Maybe one still carries your name, written in starlight, waiting to arrive at the edge of morning. Let the air grow softer. Let your thoughts drift like grains of sand settling after a long wind. You've traveled thousands of years tonight, through heat, laughter, dust, and wonder. And still you're here, breathing, listening, remembering. Egypt doesn't vanish. It lingers, in art, in dreams, in you. So close your eyes now. Feel the calm weight of time itself pressing gently around you. Not heavy, just certain. You made it through the heat, through the history, through the gods' judgment, and into the hush that follows all great stories.